Hey, Miss Knight here, and we're going to talk about food in America, and specifically the different food in different regions and how that shaped our nation's culture. Our country, it is a salad bowl of culinary influences. There are so many different regions that chefs across the world have distinguished in America, how they have such different food that they really made separate regions across the country. Now, the map that we're going to refer back to this week is the 5 regions of the West, where we live, right here, the Midwest, the middle of the country, the Southwest, including Arizona and Texas, the Southeast, including Louisiana, Georgia, and Florida, and the Northeast, including Maine and Rhode Island and New York. Now, in this map, Alaska and Hawaii are considered Western food, but if you notice in the culinary map, they do have such different food. They are different regions for distinguished chefs. But for this week, we're going to talk about the 5 regions. We do need to understand that this nation first was inhabited by Native Americans, and this is a map. Don't worry if you can't read the words. This is a map that has all of the different Native American tribes across the United States before the Europeans came to America in the 1700s. So these are the tribes that took over all of America. Let's look at another map. These are the regions for the Native American tribes across our great country. And these tribal lands are still there. Food is part of our culture. It's passed down from our parents and our grandparents, and it's a portion of who we are, who our identity comes from, is the food that we eat. Immigrants to the United States bring food with them from all over the world. And so when we look at the United States, we have lots of Mexican food, and we have Japanese food, and we have lots of different types of food in this country because the immigrants who came to this great country brought their food with them. But we also mix it with local food that grows where we live. No matter what, food brings people together. Depending on what state you live in, you're going to have different types of food that you have all the time because it grows really well there. You probably know that apples in Washington are super prevalent, and pears in Oregon, and beans in Texas, and corn and beans in the Midwest. Apples, of course, in the northeastern part of our country, peanuts in the south. So those crops that grow easily in those states also influence the regional food. Let's listen to a local perspective from Miss Pearson.
Hi, Miss Sherry here. Did you know that Washington State grows 58% of apples in all of the United States? This is my apple tree that I have in my yard. It's called a grafted tree because it has 3 different kinds of apples on it. Every year at this time, I pick the apples from my tree and I can some really yummy applesauce, and I dry some for snacking on.
Thanks, Miss Sherry, for sharing that beautiful story. Let's look at some specific regions across the country, starting with Northwest food. We have food like blackberry cobbler as part of our cultural food in the Northwest. Salmon, because we live on the ocean, and clams. And we also have Asian, that's another reason, Southern food in the southeast part of the country, where it's very hot and dry, but also humid. There's going to be different crops that grow there. And it also has a different history because that was a part of our country that slavery was legal for longer than other parts of the country. Much of the cultural food of the slaves in the South is still popular in the South. You have food like fried green tomatoes and mac and cheese. You have peach cobbler as a very iconic dish, especially with cherries. Jambalaya, something spicy but also with seafood because they also live on the ocean. Fried chicken and cornbread is an iconic southern food. Now, cornmeal was very cheap, and that was often a food that slaves were given as one of their staples. They weren't starved because the owners needed them to work, and so they were given some food, and cheap cornmeal was one of them. And so the cornbread that we just love still today is a very much a cultural food of the South, and something that has strong historical roots. Let's look at the Southwest. Southwest part of our country is iconic for Mexican food because look at this border of the United States right here, and this country is Mexico. So we have foods like tamales and enchiladas, and we have chili as a staple in Texas because beans grow there that are prevalent, and there's cows there, but the Mexican influence of that culinary food is strongly influenced because there's a lot of Hispanic people that live in the Southwest. Northeast, the top east part of our country, the direct, we're in the Northwest and they're the Northeast, the other side of the country. The Northeast, look how much coastline they have. Look how much the Northeast, look how much coastline they have. So they're going to have some local food that comes from the ocean just like we do. But they're also going to have food from their early immigrants from Italy and Europe, people that brought with them food from generations ago. You're going to find deep dish pizza and crab cakes and linguine and strong Italian and lobster rolls in the Northeast. Let's look at one more region, the Midwest, the middle of our country, a lot of farmland, right? A lot of corn grown there, potatoes. They also have a lot of beef that graze the grounds there. And so some popular foods is obviously corn on the cob, but we also have bratwursts and sausages because pigs and cows are prevalent in the Midwest. Cheese curds, fried cheese is very popular at fairs there and is so delicious, kind of unhealthy, right? But cheese is well known in Wisconsin, something that they produce a lot of dairy cows, right? It's so important to remember food has a special place for every person and that it has strong cultural ties no matter what you're eating.